Is salvation at the point of faith? When discussing this issue with those of the Church of Christ perspective, they will respond to our use of John 3:16, where it says, "For in this way God loved the world, he gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life." They insist that we are misinterpreting the word believe. They would take you down to the end of John chapter 3 and then call your attention to verse 36. They would say, here you see a contrast where you find out what the word believe actually means. The one who believes in the Son has eternal life. The one who rejects the Son will not see life, but God's wrath remains on him. They will point to how in the King James where it says does not believe, but they will say that's actually been mistranslated because you have a contrast between the verb pistio here, the participle form though, and apetheo, which is generally regarded as disobey, disregard, reject, not believe. But they will say since this is used a lot for disobedience, then what John is doing is equating belief to obedience. If you believe, you obey. If you don't believe, you disobey. Rather than getting into a protracted argument over what the verb apetheo means and what the verb pisteuo means, I would suggest that one needs to take an internal critique of the Gospel of John to find out what is actually being discussed here. Is salvation actually at the point of faith, or is it not? To do this, I would suggest we go to John chapter 9 in the story of the man born blind. And we'll go all the way down to verse 35 to sum up how the man who was born blind, Jesus healed him by putting spit on clay and anointing his eyes, and then he washed. And when he washed, he found out he could see again. Here you have what Jesus regards to this issue. You pick up in verse 35. So Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. So he found the man and said to him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man replied, "And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus told him, "You have seen him. He is the one speaking with you." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so that those who do not see may gain their sight, and the ones who see may become blind." A few things we need to note here in this story. Here, where Jesus meets the man, he goes out and finds him, and he asks the question, "Are you believing into the Son of Man?" Notice how in the Gospel of John, this particular setup is found over and over again. Pisteuo with the verb eis. And here it's not so much getting into the Son, it's transferring your trust into the Son of Man. And he's asking him if he's doing it right now. Is this something that's a habit in his life? And he answered and said, "Who is he, sir, in order that I may believe into him?" Here's pisteuo eis again. And he said, Jesus did, "You have both seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." And he said, "I believe, Lord." Now notice, here's the verb again, pisteuo. Jesus asked him, "Are you believing into the Son of Man?" At this point, the man who had been born blind says, "I believe, Lord," and it resulted in his worship. Jesus said to him, "For judgment I have come into this world, in order that those who are not seeing may see, and the ones who are seeing may become blind." So you can see very clearly what Jesus is talking about. This is a disposition, an attitude of the heart. It's not a mental assent. It is a transferring of trust from oneself into another. And that trust was born out of the healing that Jesus had provided for him. And as proof that this is about the forgiveness of sins, we move on in to verse 40. where he said, the Pharisees that were there, they heard some from the Pharisees, those who were being with him, they heard these things, and they said to him, "Surely we aren't blind too, are we?" And Jesus said, "If you were blind, then you would be having no sin. But now you say that we see, your sin remains." So very clearly, this belief resulted in the forgiveness of sins. And notice the judgment that Jesus had talked about, that he came into the world to make those who are blind who could see, and those who are see who become blind. The people who thought they were all right, Jesus made sure that it was demonstrated once and for all to see that they were in need of spiritual need. So Jesus didn't have to force blindness upon them. He merely brought to light what was already there. So when those of the Church of Christ perspective use this argument, where they want to contrast between believing and the disobedience found in John 3:36, the case study in John chapter 9 proves that this is not a valid argument.